Please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome to the Attleboro School Committee meeting of Monday, February 6, 2023. This is your notice that this meeting is being electronically recorded. We're going to start tonight with the Spotlight event, and tonight we'll be spotlighting Attleboro High School, and so I'll turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Regan or Principal.
Thank you, Chairman Withers. Tonight we have Principal Campbell and her team with us. They will be spotlighting the learning experiences that they've had this year thus far, how they connect to our Portrait of a Graduate, as well as serve our community. So, Principal Campbell.
Thank you, Lori. We are excited. Being the principal at Attleboro High School, I feel lucky because I get to see spotlights every day. It's nice to be able to see our students really shine, and that's what they're doing this year. So some of the things that we feel are important for all of the community to see is the emphasis that we know we need to have in connecting our school to the community. So that's an important feature of today, as well as Portrait of a Graduate, which is a kindergarten through 12th grade real goal and objective, and you'll see how it lives here at the high school. So we are going to start off with our marketing department and Mrs. Christouli. Come on.
Here are three students who have been working very hard last year and continued through this year. You may be familiar with our mascot rebranding. The three of them have been a part of it since day one, fighting for what they believe is the right thing for students, student voice, and they are continuing to work really, really hard. So I'll just let them kind of go for it. Talk to us about what we're doing.
Hi, I'm Ryan Delisio. I'm with the Attleboro High School's marketing class. And throughout this year, with us unveiling a new mascot, really tying together the name Blue Bombardiers, we've really had several chances to be innovating between the unveiling event that we held back in the fall and us really trying to think of how we want to connect the Blue Bombardier to Attleboro High School and to the mascot, as well as the community of Attleboro. And one thing that we did to really make this monumental event even more amazing is we had our first full school assembly. And as well as we wanted to figure out ways that we could also make sure that the whole school knew this was happening and knows, hey, this is the new Attleboro High School. This is what's happening. So we had to come up with different ways to put posters up. We used Instagram and social media, and now we're also continuing to do the same thing with the opening of our school store, which is coming very, very soon. And we've had to come up with ways to make our posters that we've been putting up and spreading around to really catch the eye of everyone so they know what's happening with the store and with the logos going on the clothes and really giving Attleboro High School a new sense of Blue Pride.
All right. I'm Nick Wilson. I'm also part of the Marketing 2 class, and we've been using, especially since the beginning of the year, a lot of different communication skills that connect to the 4 pillars. And like for at the beginning of the year, we used we communicate school values through being a Blue Bombardier, because before that, a lot of students did not know what that was and what that meant to be. So that's where we had the first all-school assembly, where that really got to help all the students at AHS know what a Blue Bombardier really was and what it meant at AHS to be a Blue Bombardier. We also communicated the unveiling event through Instagram posts and social media to hype up just the event and get students talking about it. We also communicated through the morning announcements that go through the morning to again, get the hype, get students talking about what possibly this mascot could be. For that, we also communicated through a puzzle that we did that was in the cafeteria, where it was a picture that would help, again, rise the hype and get students talking about what this new mascot thing could be. So we had puzzle pieces that went out, and all the students had to work together and put together the puzzle over the past couple of days so they could see the big picture at the end. And then we also had posters. That was one of the big things that got students talking, putting up the posters, because it communicated the event and got the word out for it. And especially recently, we've been using communication for the school store. We have the school store website now running, and it's on the poster up there with the QR code. So it brings you right to the school store website, and it brings a community to the rest of Attleboro, where they can go to the school store website and order whatever they need without having to come in school for that. We've also been communicating through wearing our own clothing, like as I'm wearing now. See? These are the shirts that we actually threw out to the crowd during the mascot unveiling, so they could get like their first glimpse at what the clothing would be like for our school store. And it also helped us loop into our next project from unveiling event to school store, and it really kept the hype rise at the school. We also, again, use social media for the school store, which is the, wait, I'm sorry, help me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's about it.
And then just word of mouth, especially for the school store, because we had a soft opening poster that was out, which helped students start talking about that.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Chloe. I'm also in the Marketing 2 class. When we took on the task of revamping the school store, we knew a really important part of it was making sure that it was a holistic effort with, many opinions and efforts from around the school and around the community. We took the time to collaborate with carpentry, graphic design, TV broadcasting especially, which you hear from later, and the students. We put out a bunch of surveys to find out what students would want. We also got some opinions from outside of the school. We talked to our families, we talked to outside outside apparel companies, and and getting the outside opinion was very helpful in making sure that we were kind of taking everyone into consideration with this, because we are a really big community and we wanted to make sure that it was as collaborative of an effort as possible. Leading into that, we wanted to make sure that whatever we put in the product line would be available for everyone. We wanted to make sure there was something for everyone. So we didn't take just into account what staff or students would want, but rather the holistic view of it all. And yeah, I thought that was a very valuable aspect of it all. Another really important aspect of this was making sure that everything that we did was accessible. And so through that, we thought a very important part of this was making sure we had a easy to navigate and easy to find website for, not just students that, have access to it inside the building, but also alumni, families. We have middle school students that are coming into the high school, and I know I have a little brother who's excited to get AHS apparel. And we wanted to make the decisions to kind of make everything as accessible and kind of positive as possible for everyone. Yeah.
So the website is available on Attleboro High School website page. You can just click on that little the three lines, and it comes right down, and you'll see Blue Hanger is the name of our store. It's a play on where you go, planes go in. I'm sure you already figured that out. And the blue hangers to hang clothes. And so it's right there, and it says Blue Hanger School Store, and you can see it, and we're working on trying to get it into the Attleboro Public School website as well. And then from there, you can order anything you want, or you can come into our store. So So yeah, so that's how we've made it accessible and worked with many different vendors, but found one that we really liked that did the website for us as well as analytics, will help us with analytics on it. They've really helped us from start to finish, and they have everything that we wanted in terms of, you know, water bottles and the bracelets, Blue Bombardier plastic bracelets to the clothing as well, so they can offer everything for us, one-stop shop. So we are hoping that City Hall will be approving that. It's been kind of caught up for a while. We wanted it open for Blue Pride, but we'll get the school store open soon enough.
Thank you. Great.
All right, thank you guys, good job.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kevin Gorman, one of the associate principals here. Karen, Austin, and Herminia are going to talk a little bit tonight about the mayoral debate. I know many of you attended that debate, and we just thought that this was an opportunity for us to kind of get closer to the vision we're all working toward, right? To be the Attleboro Public Schools to be the center of a community that is united around education, where stakeholders all feel like they can be a part of our success. And watching the debate, either in person or on TV, I think was one experience, but these people, along with Zach and Ann and countless others, did a lot of behind the scenes work to make that night such a success. So they're going to talk to you a little bit about that this evening. Karen, go for it.
Hi, I'm Karen. I'm a senior and one of the e-board members of the Student Council. We wanted to sponsor this year's mayoral debate. However, in order to do this, it took a lot of innovation. The plan and stage included having the Action Civics class, along with various school clubs, come up with different questions to be asked. Before the questions were developed, students identified specific issues that we thought that the community might want to learn more about. Through this work, we came up with a few major categories: revitalization efforts, economic issues, social issues, and leadership style. Through peer editing and multiple drafts, these topics eventually became questions. Once the questions were drafted from our Action Civics class, members of the Student Council came together to organize them in a way that made sense for our town hall style debate. Apart from the question developing process, we spent a lot of time during and outside of school preparing and setting up for the actual debate. We had to do a wide range of things, from coordinating timekeeping responsibilities to providing double ACS with a complete rundown of the program so they would have all of their cues ready to go. Behind the scenes were students, teachers, staff, and more, moving things around to ensure that the debate ran smoothly. Innovation.
Hi, I'm Austin Bowie. I was one of 3 moderators at the debate, and I'll be going over communication. So one of the biggest things with communication with anything is being able to collaborate with people, especially with the debate where everybody's talking. You need to know how to communicate properly. So a big thing was we worked with individuals, groups, companies, and teachers and students. So when it came to students, Action Civics classes came in handy with questions and with helping with timers and with helping with question askers and candidate handlers. Teachers like Mr. Gorman, Mr. Westwater, Action Civics teachers, and Mr. Tarsi helped with lighting, helping kids know where to talk, where to sit, when to sit, stuff like that. We worked with multiple news stations about where to hold the microphone, whether it's over here, whether it's over here, when to, look towards the candidates, when to look towards the crowd, where you're speaking to. We talked about pretty extensively what the candidates needed, whether it came to water, handling a special room beforehand so that they could relax and calm down before they came out, or whether it was what type of tables they liked, if they could move, or if they didn't move, or if they were still, spotlights on them, or lights in front of them. We also worked with student council, and some of the school committee members attended, so I'm sure you guys all saw them. One of the biggest things was with the timers, the candidates, and the moderators. It was almost a triangle of communication where we would ask the question or ask the questionnaire to come up. They would ask. We would then proceed to list who would talk. The timers would raise a paddle, which are these two. We would pick up the paddle was raised. The candidates would pick up which paddle was raised. And once it would come down, whether they, finish their sentence or not. You have to keep a flat tone, keep the mood still, and keep the night going and cut them off, even if you had to. So for everyone who attended, I'm sure you saw, a pretty flat level of communication going on. But behind the scenes, it was a very big multi-level, operation to make sure everything went seamlessly.
Hi, I'm Herminia. I was also a timekeeper along with her, and I'm a senior. So for the mayoral debate, we were able to collaborate with each other within the school and delegate jobs to each other to help, to whichever job helped best suited people's personality traits, as he is a good public speaker, I am not. So we were able to delegate those type of jobs. We were able to collaborate with the community to be able to get amazing turnout and the feedback that we did. And ensuring the debate's success, collaboration didn't stop just from the timekeepers, but also the mediators that also had the tough job of stopping the candidates. We were able to make sure they got every answer done correctly and on time. So the students of Attleboro High School were able to work together and learn from each other by finding ways to ensure that the debate ran as smoothly as possible. And then for balance, during the debate, we were able to hear from one another what roles best suit them and their abilities and take that into consideration when deciding who would do what. We used different perspectives in order to achieve the best possible outcome for the night, and we were able to balance each other by listening and understanding.
Thank you guys very much. We'll bring up Mrs. Bergeron in the
just-
broadcasting. Oh,
I'm sorry, it's not really a question, but it's just a comment. I had the opportunity to be there that night. You guys did an incredible job. I mean, everybody involved, you could tell that a lot of people had done all of their homework behind the scenes, in front of the cameras, in the audience. You guys handled the adults incredibly. It was great to watch that part of it, but it was great to hear all the answers. I mean, we've all been involved in different debates and the rest of it, and you guys set the bar. You have really set the bar going forward in the city. And I'm glad I don't have to compete against you guys.
Mrs. Storrs?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, you know what? You guys did such a great job. I want to see this every year. I want every single time we have an election in the city, it should be starting here in this building with you guys. That's how great you guys did. I got to say, if I was up on that stage, you moderators were brutally fair. But you were fair, but oof. And for the previous grid marketing, I want to say how glad I am to be at the point where we are now with the store opening, with the hangar. I love the idea, the hangar. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So great job and great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bergeron, the broadcasting students will be up next.
Good evening. I'm Kelly Bergeron, the teacher of the radio and television broadcasting program. I have Megan and Kim here tonight just to talk about some of the projects we've been working on. There's been a lot of collaborating both within our classroom, outside our school, and they've been working really hard to get this program up and running in our awesome new space. So I'll let them tell you about some of the things we've been working on.
Hi, I'm Megan. I'm a junior in the radio and television broadcasting CTE. So for the Innovate pillar, that's a big part of what we do in our class. So we conduct interviews anytime we're making a story. We try to get all perspectives possible. So we interview students, staff members, community members. When we went to another school, we interviewed people who worked at the YMCA once. We interviewed students at Willett or Brennan just recently. So when we do this, we try to put together a list of questions that we can ask to get all of the possible information that we can. And then once we have it, as a group, we come back into the classroom, and usually within smaller groups, we'll decide which sound bites to use from the interviews, what pieces to put together, and then that way we can get everything we need to put together a story that is visual for everyone to observe and learn from for Innovate. And then for Communicate, it is probably one of the foundations of what we do as a class. So in our studio, with all the great new equipment and the screens and everything, the cameras, the sound, the lighting, It's a great way to record broadcasts, to communicate with the rest of the school, to share information that we learn. We have a team of students who will go out and they'll talk to students and staff members, people involved in clubs or groups, and we'll talk to these people and we'll learn about what's going on in the school. And going forward, we're going to be putting together a bi-weekly right now, but possibly weekly in the future, but a bi-weekly broadcast to share with the rest of the school everything that's going on within these different departments. And then for the debate, we brought a few students to film that. We recently took a trip over to Brennan Middle School to interview what they've been working on over there. So we really try to involve everyone in what we do to create visual stories that everyone can watch and learn from and get a little piece of every part of the school and the community.
Hi, I'm Kimberly. I'm a junior, and I'm a part of the Radio and TV Broadcasting program. For Collaborate, it's definitely something that happens. It's like one of the first things we learn when we walk in this class, because our projects, we work with groups. It's never a one-man job. There's always people working on different parts, and it creates one video. For example, as marketing said, we did work with marketing to help with their mascot unveiling. We created the video to, create that hype that everyone was just looking forward to in that whole assembly. So yeah, we do work a lot with inside the school, but we also work a lot with the general Attleboro community. Like for example, last year, like Megan said, we worked with Willett and the YMCA, and this year we're currently working with Brennan. And then for balance, this is very important to our program because it's always like, when we're filming or editing any of our projects, we always need to be specific about what we want to include. We always want to think about what kind of visuals we need to put in and just who to interview, what shots to get, just in general. And especially our projects rely a lot on unbiased opinions. We always want to put out positivity because we are, showing that we are Attleboro and Blue Pride. Also, our videos connects with a bunch of different relationships part of the school. Like we've done a bunch of stuff. We've included clubs, teachers, students, all the community members around Attleboro. Thank you. Thank you.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
So we'd just like to say, it's such a pleasure to be able to have more than just Zach and I represent the school, because as you can see, we have so many great students here doing so many great things, so many different things. They're really being an exact push of a graduate, because even though they presented only certain pillars, we can see how they all incorporate every single thing, how everyone's innovating, everyone's collaborating, everyone's communicating, and everyone has a balance within. So it's just great to show what our school is doing within, and not just like the public events. Like we all know about the mayoral debate, but I'm not sure if all of you knew about how our school store is doing and all that. So it's just really, really good to be able to show off that and show what we're doing.
Yeah, and it's nice to have these school spotlights because first of all, me and Ian can only do so much. Like we love to show you everything that the students are doing. Like we showed you the video of the mascot unveiling. We've shown you other things. There's only so much we can do here, so it's nice to elevate other voices to hear their perspective as well. And not only that, because we kind of established that for this year we were only focusing on the high school mainly for stuff we would be presenting. So it's nice, like we heard from Willett the other week, and then I'm sure we're going to continue to hear from other schools. So the whole school spotlight thing in general, I think is a really great opportunity to hear from the greater school community.
Thank you. Mr. Domenici?
Yeah, and I'll be mindful of my time since the timers are here. So I just love this. I mean, when we sat down 7 years ago and envisioned, you know, not just what this building would become, but like what we thought learning should be to have a building like this, these are all the things that we expected to see, and it's immediately happening. I was here for the reveal of the mascot. That was amazing. The video blew the doors off the place. This was as loud as I've ever seen it. I believe we were all at the debate. All 9 of us were there. We witnessed all of that, and it was well executed. And, you know, the radio and TV broadcasting, Megan, you and I just had a conversation recently. I'm super excited about the potential there. And just all 3 groups here, all in different ways, collaborated with each other on all the projects that were presented tonight. And it's just a great representation of what's going on here at the high school, and I couldn't be prouder.
Well said. Mr. Geddes?
Thank you. Just to go off of a lot of what's already been said, I think this is a great demonstration of how education has transformed, at least in the last 25 years from my experience in high school. There's so much more emphasis on a lot of the skills that are now recognized as necessary in the workforce. It's not just learning your reading and your writing and your math. Those are all important. Those are all critical. But the collaboration, the innovation is what leaders in all industries are looking for now. Credit to the faculty and staff at the high school for fostering that, and credit to the students for embracing those skills and really utilizing them, because although you're learning them in broadcasting or in civics class, you're going to be able to apply them in any field you choose. If you decide to change your career multiple times, those skills are going to be pretty universal. So continue to try to hone those and focus those as best you can. And thank you all for a great presentation tonight. You all did a great job.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, moving on, Student Advisory Council. Mr. Medeiros, Mr. Miller, you have more for us tonight?
Yeah, a little bit. So first, yeah, we've already talked about the debate after that happened and everything we learned from that. I just think, to reiterate one more time, all of these, more than just learning in the classroom, all these extra things that we do, I think is very enriching to students' education. Like Mr. Getty said, like, it's not just about learning your core elements of class, it's about learning your leadership skills and your collaboration skills. And I just think this stuff is very important for students to learn, because if you go through and you just learn like your academics, I feel like you're not as prepared or ready to face the world than if you took advantage of all these other opportunities.
Yeah, exactly. And going off that, taking advantage of our opportunities and everything, as the Student Advisory Council delegates, we're going to be going to a regional meeting tomorrow where we get to like showcase a little bit of what we're doing and talk to other schools and see what they're doing and be able to learn from that and take back information and see how we can improve what we're doing. And also, just a little plug, we have Blue Pride Night on Wednesday night at 6, so we'd really like to be able to see everyone there.
Yeah, a lot will be shown off there.
Yeah.
So we've been, I'm sure we've told you, we've been working with students from around the southeast region of Massachusetts. Every other month we have a meeting for like several hours. It's been on Zoom in the past, and we've been working on fixing problems within our school and their schools. But we're really excited to actually finally be able to meet in person and work with them there. So we'll report back how that meeting goes the next time we're here. But
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Next, we have our superintendent's report. Mr. Sawyer?
Thank you, Chairman. I have a couple of items to go over tonight. First, I'd like to start with a little debrief about Friday. I know that my office received some concern calls about our decision to have school under the cold weather that we experienced on Friday. I just wanted to take a moment to remind everyone where the administration stands on these things. We have 180 days of school. We schedule them in a calendar, which is the next topic we'll be talking about. And we feel it's our responsibility to deliver school on those 180 days as many times as possible. People are counting on us. They have work schedules, and when we cancel school, I know it's a major disruption to the community. So when we think it's safe to have school, we're going to have school, even if the conditions aren't optimal. It was cold on Friday, it definitely was. But when we make these decisions, we base them based on the forecast for the conditions here in Attleboro. I mean, sometimes I think people get swept up in the hysteria around conditions generally, and some places are worse than here. Conditions can vary pretty widely. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but places as close as Franklin can sometimes have very, very different forecasts than what we're experiencing. And so we try to base those decisions on the best information to have about what it's going to be like here in Attleboro. And then the two key times that we're focused on when we make these decisions are arrival and dismissal. The 2-hour windows in which the district is receiving students in buildings at the beginning of the morning across the various levels, and then again in the afternoon when we were letting them go. What it's going to be like in those moments is absolutely critical. And of course, our ability to make sure that our campuses are safe for them to be leaving the building and stepping off our grounds. So, based on all those factors, we felt like Friday was not really the concern, and that I think people's concerns about Friday really were a concern about the conditions that we were expecting on Saturday. For any of you who went out on Saturday morning in particular, it was like they talked about. It was brutally cold, and a couple people asked, would we have had school if Saturday had been a school day? And I say, luckily I didn't have to think about that, so I don't know. But it certainly would have been a very different set of conditions that had to be considered. That said, nothing bad happened on Friday, and I think that reflects that it was a day that we could have school. Moving on, unless there are any questions about that. I have presented for you our proposal, the administration's proposal for the academic calendar for 2023-2024. As I know you all understand, each year presents its own challenges. Certain holidays fall at different times. That has an impact on our thinking about the best way to deliver that school year. And there are also other general constraints that we have to work around. So what you have before you today is our proposal for how to best deliver the 2023-2024 school year.
So one thing I noticed in looking at the proposed calendar is that, as has been the practice, starting in August, the students starting the week before Labor Day, but I'm curious about the instead of having 4 days that week, last week of August, there'd be 3 days with students. Why that is, and if there's any way we can have a 4-day week, what the benefit of that is, or doing it this way.
Sure. So there's a couple factors that have resulted in that setup. The first is that under the contract that we have with the AEA, we cannot begin school with teachers before August 25th. Which is why you see the first day with teachers that Friday before. That's the earliest we can do it. As a district, we have historically started the school year with 2 PD days. One of those is, our convocation. It's a district opening, starts off the whole school year. Then there are building meetings, and then the next day, that second day, is a professional development day where we deliver professional development for teachers, and then that's when the school year usually begins. So that's why you see us starting on Tuesday of that week, is because with us not able to start before the 25th, we have to get those 2 days in, and that results in the start of the 29th. And then we can't have school on Friday the 1st, because again, under the contract, that day, the Friday before Labor Day, is not allowed to be a school day. That was a concession we made with the AA to get the agreement back originally to be able to start school before Labor Day, which was a change of practice many years ago. So that's how we ended up with the 3-day week.
How necessary, I guess, is it necessary to have 2 professional development days before this?
That's a good question. In fact, in conversations with the union, they pointed out to us that there's nothing sacrosanct about that. So, I mean, we do need to deliver professional development. Certainly the beginning of the year is a better time to do that than, later in the year, but it is not absolutely necessary that we have both days to start the year. We certainly need a day to get teachers in and acclimate them to being back to work before we bring students in.
I mean, could we fit that second PD day somewhere else in the calendar, I guess, is what I'm delicately getting at, if we wanted
Yes,
to.
if the school committee wanted us to look at that, we could definitely identify a day that we could move that PD day to get a 4-day week at the end of August.
Ms. Larson?
Just with some of my past exposure to lab, I know when some of the calendar conversations were developed, going back quite a ways, I think everybody involved at the time looked at the 2 PD days being very, not so much necessary, but very helpful. And I think from the feedback that I've received, having a 3-day week, a 4-day week, a 5-day week kind of helps both the families and the students kind of get back into the swing of school in the fall. So it always kind of seemed to me that it kind of mirrored each other's needs and dovetailed into each other pretty well. So, I mean, obviously we can talk about other options, but I know there were quite a number of conversations related to calendar over the years and kind of trying to develop into a model so that people could look at a calendar in the future and kind of say, okay, historically this is what Attleboro does, and I can start to try to plan the rest of my life around, what the district going to do as far as opening and such. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think starting with, I think we start with 4-day weeks the last few years at least, which I think makes sense to have back-to-back 4-day weeks. First week is you're getting all the stuff out of the way you have to get out in the first week, and then you have a long 4-day weekend and you hit the ground running on a 4-day week. I guess my only question is whether or not it makes sense to do a 3-day week and then a 4-day week, or to do what we have done and do 4-day, and then find another PD day sometime in September or October. But I'm not, married to either idea. It's just the earlier we can get the days in, I would think would be better. Mr. Storrs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, I mean, I've always seen the value in the 2 days. So we know that there's requirements that it's probably going to take at least a half a day of going over changes to policies and laws and all that other stuff. That's at least a half a day. And then could we really get the kickoff and the school building, individual school building stuff done in another half day? That seems tight.
That is how it works now, is that is that first day.
Right, the first day
And
is
then
half here and then half in the individual schools.
Yeah, but that's where they do the policy review and all that other stuff.
Oh, okay.
The second day is strictly professional development, and from year to year, that varies pretty widely in terms of, what we're doing based on the PD plan.
So to go with what Steve's saying, the chairman's saying is, that second day, that PD day, how critical is that?
Well, it's absolutely critical as a thing.
Sure. I mean, how critical is it that it's before the students are in the classroom?
It's hard to answer that because we've never done it any other way. I've been here 27 years, and I'm pretty sure all 27 of them included having those 2 days back to back. There's no question that we could not start school without the first day, which is the large meeting here, and then the time in the buildings to do all the various things we have to do to get ready. That PD day, I mean, we've always argued that it should be up front because that gives teachers a chance to, receive their professional development before the year starts. Although, we've certainly been in meetings where some people have argued that on that particular day with kids coming tomorrow, perhaps some people have their minds elsewhere, and that, perhaps a different time would benefit us. We've always worried that while that there's a certain logic to that, it's hard to find another appropriate day that isn't too far into the year, at which point it's like, why are we bothering to try to do this? So trying to find that balance has always been difficult, which is why we've kept to what has been working for us. But as I said, in conversations about this, the AA pointed out that, that is something that could be considered.
Mr. Frappier?
Just out of respect to families with working parents, it's easier to find childcare at the end of the summer than it is any random day during the school year. As it is, the professional development ends in November 7th. If we want to do it earlier in the school year, there's not much room, and it breaks up what early people might be banking on not having these extra days off. We do early release more often than some new people the town might understand, and just adding the extra day is a burden to people outside the school system. And the need for a 4-day work week, school week, seems a little arbitrary in the face of the complications it introduces to other families.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume, which is always dangerous, that if we were going to do this, we would do a PD day, around a long weekend, whether that be the Friday of Columbus Day weekend or another long weekend of the such, where we've historically had half days in the past.
When we looked at this year and thought about all the various permutations, we identified that weekend as a potential to do something like that. So if we were to go that direction, that is the weekend I would target. But again, our proposal is the one you have in front of me.
Because, having had small children, I certainly agree with Mr. Frappier. It's always difficult to find childcare, but I do think if you're talking about, a Monday of 1 week, your kids aren't going to be going to camp, so it's, it's not like they're going to be going to camp for a week. You're still having to find childcare for one day.
Well, Camp Finberg respectively does offer a camp right until the start of school, into September 1st, and it's a very popular camp with the city of Attleboro.
Right, no, and that's where my kids went as well for years, but, again, it's one day as opposed to a whole week. It's, where you're going to sign up kids for, I don't know, I mean, the Y offers, vacation camp as well around holidays, so I think either way is fine. I guess my question is what's best for, the students in the district, and, I'm not saying that I have the answer, I just was struck by the change from 4 days with students to 3.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been our preference to do a 4-day week that week. We looked at some other options that would have had a 2-day week, and we decided that wasn't a good choice for us because that's just not enough time to make the week worth what we think we'd be investing into it by having it. So from our perspective, 3 was enough. I wish the dates worked a little bit differently and we could do 4. I agree that that's been working well for us the last couple of years. But, as you know, where Labor Day falls really swings over the course of a decade, and this is the first year that we've really run into it being a problem for us. And I want the community to know that, as the members on the negotiating team know, this is an issue that's going to continue to be something that we talk about with the AEA because we have future calendars to worry about, and this is an open question. But we are late on settling this one. I'm receiving emails from parents asking when the first day of school is, and I'm sure you're all getting questions as well. So I feel like in the interest of resolving this year, this is a workable proposal, and we'll continue to work on the larger issue in time.
And so should I assume that reaching an agreement to start a day early, the 24th of August is not something on the table for this year at this point?
Correct.
All right. Well, I suppose, we have two options. I mean, we have multiple options, I suppose, but 2 options, I guess, that have been discussed. One is the proposed to approve the proposed calendar, which would have teachers the 25th and the 28th, and then students starting Tuesday the 29th. Or the alternate would be to approve a calendar where teachers started on the 25th still, but students started on the 28th, with the direction to the administration to find a professional development day. I'll entertain, a motion on either, and we can discuss and vote.
I do have one question before. If we adopt the calendar as recommended, when would the first day of kindergarten be? We're looking at the 5th or the 6th?
That is an excellent question.
So it usually happens within that day. We have orientation one day and then they start on the next day. So and we try to stagger it so Thatcher doesn't have the preschool and kindergarten starting on the
Yeah.
same days, so,
All right, thank you.
yep.
And I'll make the motion to adopt the calendar as recommended by superintendent.
Second. All right. Any further discussion, comments? Mr. Domenici?
For this year, I wouldn't want to go any further than 3 days, any less. A Monday might be palpable. I guess we'll find out shortly if this is the direction we go. Otherwise, if you're taking the other day, which would be the Friday before, would we then have to find another day? Because that's a half day. That effectively is one of the 180. So if you're now going to make that a full professional development day, we'd have to adjust the calendar, and then it gets a little dicey towards the end of the school year.
So, because of what needs to be done at that professional development day, we would have to create another half-day someplace else.
Yeah.
We would just turn one day into a half day.
Okay.
Right. But we would not lose another day.
We would not lose another day. Just moving them around.
Mr. Storrs?
Yeah, I just want, the only reason why this is even a question is it just, the calendar happened to work out in such a way where the 25th happens to be the previous week, so that's the situation. Normally, we're not dealing with this kind of thing, and it's not an issue, so just wanted to put that out there. So I'm not sure how it works out the following years, but that's why we're having this conversation, because
Correct.
the calendar happens to work out that way.
It's a very strange configuration,
Right.
and not optimal, but it's what we're left with.
It's tough. I mean, I still think I'd rather have the kids there for 4 days, but I suppose we can vote.
I just want to point out that next year, the 25th is a Sunday, so we're looking at a 3-day week next year. I know that's not the topic for tonight, but.
Hopefully that's something that can be addressed in negotiations.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion that's been made and seconded to approve the calendar as presented with teachers starting on the 25th and students starting on the 29th. I'll take a roll call vote. Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Geddes?
No.
Mr. Withers, no. Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Storrs?
Yes.
Ms. Porto?
No.
Mr. Domenici?
No.
Ms. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Frappier?
Yes.
3, 4, 5. All right, so passes. Okay.
I was just trying to keep up with you, so.
It was
B. Rob, Lynn, and
Steve,
Scott.
You.
and
B. Rob, Lynn, and Scott. All right, next.
Next, I wanted to update you a little bit on funding. Normally by this time of year, we have the cherry sheet. We do not yet. That's not that surprising, given that we have our first new governor in 8 years. So that is imminent, and we'll certainly keep the committee informed as we learn what that number is. But you know, in December, we did our budget presentation in accordance with the policy, and I made some remarks about my concerns about funding for the Attleboro Public Schools and the sustainability of what we're doing here based on our funding levels. I did receive feedback on that presentation, and a couple different people pointed out to me that you know, the best measure is not per pupil expenditure, but is percent above net school spending. And the argument goes that net school spending is a better comparison point because it factors in the fact that different students, you know, represent different costs in terms of how, you know, what it takes to educate them. So, you know, high needs students, whether they are special education, English learners, students in poverty, right? High needs students, the state provides more money for those students because there is a recognition that it is a greater cost to districts to provide an education for those students and the needs that they present. So net school spending, by capturing the demographics of the actual students within a district, factors in the fact that, you know, communities with high levels of poverty, high levels of English learners, and so forth and so on, are going to need more money than communities that have much lower numbers of that. And I think there's a certain logic to that. That makes sense to me. So I thought I would present the committee a bit with, what's the picture when we think about it that way? Because the argument, again, is that per pupil expenditure is just a total number, and that, some communities might not give as much, but they might not have as many students that are in a high needs category, and therefore that isn't necessarily a fair comparison. So I presented to you in chart form some basic information, and the chart is our DART districts. I'll remind everyone that DESE provides a tool that is the district analysis and review tool. That's a way that we're allowed to go in and try to do some of this comparative work. And the state identifies for us 10 other districts that they say are closest to Attleboro. Now, as long as I've been talking about this, which goes over a decade now, there are always people who don't like the communities that come up in the comparison. And sometimes there are some surprises there. But the point here is that when you look at the size of districts and the percent of students who are in high needs, these are districts that are similar to Attleboro based on the comparisons. And I actually gave in that chart at the bottom what the state's explanation for how they do that comparison is. So of the 10 districts that are like us, I thought it was important to note that Attleboro is the lowest funded district according to our net school spending percentage. It's also lowest by PPE as well, per pupil expenditure. Attleboro has a percent above net school spending of 103.3%, which means that our budget in the last year that they're providing data was 3.3% above net school spending, right? The average for that number statewide is 125.9%, right? That particular figure would put us, if we were funded at 125.9%, our budget would be $17.9 million more than it is currently. All right, so back to when we compare ourselves to average. Now, if you remember, when we did per pupil expenditure, the gap was almost $24 million. So this actually did narrow the gap a little bit based on the point that was being made about why we should use that as a fair comparison. So while not quite as grim, I think you can all agree that that figure of almost $18 million still represents a pretty significant gap. And again, the point I'm trying to make is that as a community, we are held to the same measures of accountability as every other community in the Commonwealth, and we are doing it at a significant disadvantage financially. And I'll take a moment just to point out again that the only way that happens, right, the only way we're able to do that is because of the hard work of our educators every day to make up the difference, right? There are over 200 people who would work here if we were like most communities, and they don't. And that means that those of us who are here all have to do extra to get all that done because we're being held to that same standard. The other point I would just make with this chart that I provided for you is that while we're at the bottom in terms of funding, we are not at the bottom in terms of performance, right? And that's why I gave you some MCAS data in that chart to show that while we're not at the very top of that list, we're above average for that group, even though our funding is the lowest. And the other point I would make is that when we looked at per pupil expenditure, right, and I said that we were in the bottom decile, I then took a look at that same decile and I said, okay, well, what does those other schools, what does that look like for them in terms of percentage above net school spending? Even though we were, what's my number, 298 out of 318, we were literally third from the bottom when it came to net school spending among that group, right? So among the districts that had the lowest per pupil expenditure, we had among the lowest net school spending, right? And then if you looked at it the other way, if we looked just at net school spending, we're a little bit better than that decile. We were 283 out of 318, so that puts us in the 9th decile, slightly better. But if you compare us to everyone between us and the bottom, we're again third from the bottom, right? which means to say that there are only 2 communities in Massachusetts who happen to be on both lists, right? Most districts are on one list or the other. Either they're not high in per pupil expenditure, but that's okay because when you compare them in terms of net school spending, they are spending well above, right? The average net school spending for that top 10 decile is 116%, right? At 116%, I believe we would have about $9 million more. So, that list goes that way. So and then the other list goes that way as well, right? Of the schools, there's just 2 other districts that are with us in terms of being bad on both lists. And so, again, we're very proud of what we accomplished with the resources, and we feel like the community supports us. So this isn't a there isn't support for the schools. We've come a long way in terms of what we provided, but this community has to understand that when it comes to funding in Massachusetts, this is the bottom. This is it right here, right? What we're doing and what we're living through is in every way you measure it, right, as low as it gets in terms of funding. And I have, as I said before, deep concerns about our ability to maintain that over the long haul. And as I've said multiple times, it is not that the city has the funds to provide us and they're not providing it, right? We as a community, as currently constituted, don't have them. And so that's a reality that we face, which is why when people are frustrated with the resources we have, I always point out that it's not like, things could be all that different in any given year. But it's a problem if people don't understand the depth of the problem. When we talk about, how are we going to support the schools and what kind of changes we need to make and what are we going to do for it, when the solutions miss the mark in terms of the size of the problem by a factor of 100, it suggests that, again, I'm not doing a good enough job of helping the community to understand just how big of a gap there is between us and other communities in the Commonwealth in terms of our ability to fund our schools. And so I just wanted to provide the extra data. Mr. Larson, I know you asked about trying to get a better determination of what people in the middle are doing. One, we've been taking a look at that data, and I personally can't find any trends, so I'm trying to get some help. I'm doing a phone a friend because there doesn't seem to be a pattern there. But the other problem we have is that unlike this information, which is very transparent from the state, how the budgets are set up in different communities, we don't have a source that's something that we can look at that's as reliable. We did find one that provided some information that we've been using, but Attleboro's numbers don't match up. In that source, Attleboro's numbers don't match up to what we know to be the case in Attleboro. So if Attleboro's wrong, it kind of throws a little bit of concern about what the other numbers are like. So struggling a little bit with that, but I have not forgotten that you asked us to take a look at that.
If I can.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's one of those, it's a puzzle for sure. And there's so many moving pieces in it. And I'll use an example as, transportation just is another country in and of itself. But then, I don't think the community realizes some of the credits that cities and towns are allowed to take out of the state net school spending. And it's really their prerogative whether they want to or not. They don't have to, but Attleboro always has. So it's not really ever been like a mayor to mayor kind of thing. It just, for the time that I've been on the involved, I can tell that they always have taken those. It would be very difficult to do the comparison that I would love to be able to do, because there's so many different factors that go into, does a community take full advantage of the credits that they're allowed to, or do they just let that lay and cover it in the other half of their budgets, as an example? How do they handle some of the other expenditures that come through that can be done in different ways? So, well, I appreciate you looking, I really do. I also realize that there's so many other factors that go into the number that even with all the information, it would take a huge Excel spreadsheet to try to figure out for sure, based on all the different multiples that can go into the numbers, so.
Mr. Doris?
Yeah, this seems to be something that, we've been doing this for decades. It's just, we keep, every year, we talk about where you just explained. I appreciate, if you go back a couple of mayors, that something was done regarding, where our spend, the amount that we were receiving went up. And I appreciate that mayors since then have kept that up to varying degrees. So I appreciate that we're above, because if you went back 10 years, we were net and just net.
Yes.
So at least there's been something since. But, we're just, every year, we just kind of hear the same thing, and we hear the same thing, and we hear the same thing, and there doesn't seem to be a solution to this. I know sometimes they change the formulas, and that's good. Well, usually it's good, because we know that the formula's been a problem for Attleboro, and that I think the latest formula is better for us, which is great. But it's just a continuing thing, so I don't know what the solution is, and I've been hearing this for a long time, so.
Yeah.
But again, thank you to you and all of our staff and everybody, because what we're able to do in Attleboro with what we have is incredible, and I think that's important to say.
I appreciate that, and you're right, I don't know what the solution is either. Quite frankly, that's not really, my responsibility to figure out. You hire me to administrate the district with what we have, and that's what we do, and we will continue to do. I don't bring this up because, I'm not up to the task. It's been the job all along. But I really increasingly worry because as much as the state has added funding through SOA, the gap between us and the average has only
If I may, another piece that I think is very important, is we've talked about it many, many times, is how much of our funding is actually flexible. Because when you really think about staffing and retirements and this and that, all that other stuff, facilities, all these fixed costs that we can't play with. They are something we have to pay every single year. What is the percentage? Is it like 98%? Yeah, I think 98% is fixed costs. So that gives us 2% of our budget where we can try to do special programs and this and that and all that other stuff. So when people are worried, like, why a kindergarten class might have, more pupils in it than we would want, this is why.
This is exactly why. Yeah. That's what those 200 people would be using for.
So I think it's important that we continue to provide this information, this data and this information, I fear I'll be seeing it in my sleep for years to come after we've started beating the drum, 8 years ago or wherever it was when we faced a real crisis. And I think, on the one hand, from a positive perspective, it's always been a certain point of pride of what we can accomplish here, with limited resources because of the staff and teachers and administrators we have. But it also can lead to a level of complacency, which is dangerous. We saw that 8 years ago when, we saw a major budget shortfall, and we're very reliant on the state. And so I worry about, while we've been lucky with what's happened with the state over the last 5 or 6 years and increasing funding so that we've been able to avoid similar crises, what happens when, the money coming from the state goes down, isn't as significant? Or, what happens when we finally just reach a critical mass and we finally can't produce the results we've been able to produce? And both of those things will happen at some point. And, we just need to be prepared we need to have a real discussion as a community about, how are we going to be prepared when that happens? Because we're able to halfway fend off a crisis 8 years ago, but it was still a crisis. And it's not to say next time won't be worse. So we need to, as a community, continue to confront this reality and come up with how we're going to deal with it. So we're ready next time the state changes its funding. Mr. Geddes?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So over the years, as I've looked at other districts and other DART districts, because the DART districts vary year to year, I think we've got about 20 or 30 different communities that we've been compared to given the year. And so I went back and looked at some of those. Westfield, Malden, Fitchburg, Leominster, who in my mind are most like Attleboro. And to Mr. Sawyer's point, most were higher per pupil. The only ones that I saw lower percentage over net school spending were Leominster and Fitchburg. And I'm guessing Leominster was one of the other one besides Attleboro in that bottom.
That is correct.
On both lists. But the other one that I looked at, because I remember at one point Framingham was one of our dark districts. And I remember as we were I don't remember exactly what the topic was, but when it came out that Framingham was one of the dark districts, on a social media thread, there were people that were more outraged that we were comparable to Framingham than whatever the actual topic of discussion was. And although Framingham has significantly more students and a decent number of more high-needs students, they're at 146% of net school spending, over $21,000 per student. So in whatever your thoughts are on Framingham, in those two regards, I'm envious. So I think that kind of illustrates what our situation is. And you have for a number of years been talking about how we're very middling, and so we don't get a lot of the benefits that some communities do, and we're not, and we don't get some of the penalties that other communities don't, but in the end, we wind up just kind of left off to the side. So I do think this is something that the state needs to continue to look at, and in any ways that the city can provide additional support would be greatly appreciated as well. So,
Mr. Manci?
Thank you. And Rob, I'll probably piggyback a little bit, because one of the things that struck me is the gap seems to have widened despite the fact that the Student Opportunity Act is starting to implement. And so while we agreed 6-7 years ago, a lot of us were saying that we need to look at the state because the funding formula was broken, and we finally have, and we need to continue to advocate together on that. I still think we need to probably talk to our state partners and talk to the state to say this formula is not working for Attleboro. We seem to be the just above one layer, but significantly below others, where the funding needs are I'm seeing it go to just a subset of school communities. A lot of that money is going into the Boston area and not enough to some of ours. So we have to push on that. And having lived in Framingham before, the Route 9 is significantly bigger business revenue for that community than what we have, unfortunately. And while we appreciate any assistance from the city, the small incremental boosts every year over year aren't really going to get it done. So I think it is a larger issue, and every year you kind of sound the alarm, and we try to land the plane despite the low, the small runway. So we're going to have to work together. It has to be a joint effort to push at our state level to get that funding. So while we try to build more revenues here in the city, that type of stuff takes time. But we have a funding formula that we're already showing somehow Attleboro is missing. We got screwed in the first year somehow because the numbers were off. They tried to make it up to us in the last year, and I know we're going to see some incremental increases over the next 5, but it doesn't. That was alarming to me to see that the gap is widening. Even the lowest decile, we're still $10 to $12 million, less than just to make the average, or 9, I think you said. That's alarming. I thought we'd get a little more parity, I guess, or closer to the middle with the Student Opportunity Act. So I know me personally, I'll probably make some phone calls to our state delegation to say we need help, and we need to all work together on that. And I think that's something that's come full circle here. So I have some confidence, but that this was alarming to me to see, because that's the thing that stuck out for me. The gap widened despite us getting more state funding.
Thank you. Last thing I wanted to talk about this evening, later in the agenda, we're asking for support for our recommendation to adopt Desmos, the math program for next year. And Assistant Superintendent Regan will be in that moment presenting a little bit about the program and showing why we think that this would be an improvement for math instruction in the district. But while I have the floor, I just wanted to take a moment to address some concerns that had surfaced last week about the program. And I wanted to start by saying that, one, we were caught off guard. It was a little bit of a surprise for us that suddenly this was getting some attention. But that should not be interpreted as anything other than the fact that based on what we had looked at, there was a disconnect. As an administration, we believe that we owe the community and the parents in this district an explanation for why we're doing what we're doing and what we're doing. And we welcome questions about that. Quite frankly, that there are questions about our curricular material is something that I welcome, right? We should have good answers, and we should be able to answer to the community for what we're doing. There's nothing to hide here, and as I can explain, in this particular case, we just have a misunderstanding. But before I get into that detail, the key idea here is that, as we've been saying for years now, right, the schools belong to the community, right? The schools are a place for everyone who lives in the community, right? All is a key component of our mission here in the district, and we want to make sure that everyone feels like the schools belong to them. And that is a challenge for all schools in 2023, right? As we become a deeply divided and politicized society, finding safe ground that's the middle is becoming more and more of a challenge. But that is the challenge, and that is the work, and it's what we come to work every day to do. And we take it very, very seriously. I think one of the ways that we continue to build trust in that commitment that we have to this is to be able to answer questions. So there is no concern about that. In terms of this particular issue, the explanation is simple. There was a company that developed this program that, again, Ms. Regan will show you. When it was purchased by another company called Amplify, Amplify bought the division of that company that developed this program. The remaining company that was left after this program was purchased, that entire division was purchased, spun off to create a new company called Desmos Studio. Desmos Studio had the language that raised the concerns and the questions from the community. That's a different product than the one we're talking about. It's a completely separate company, and that's language that relates to that product that's outside of what we're talking about. And so while it's an understandable crossing of the wires, ultimately that's the answer for why we're involved in Desmos, because it's owned by Amplify and it's a different company than the one that's being questioned.
Just, I'm not sure that, I know I got an email, and I know a couple other committee members got emails, but I'm not sure everyone got emails raising this concern. So if you could briefly address what the concern raised by members of the community was.
So as most companies do in 2023, Desmos Studio has language similar to what we do, mission and vision in schools. They had some philosophy statements, and in those philosophy statements, they said some things that were a concern to constituents in the community around their commitment to what I would characterize as social justice. And while that's not a thing to be against necessarily, what it had to do with a math program, what I think is at the core of what the question was, and as we'll be able to show you tonight, that it's unrelated.
And it ended up being a completely different company.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, that's why it's unrelated. It's completely different.
Mr. Storrs?
I just want to thank I brought it to your attention. I raised the question. You guys responded very quickly, which allowed me to respond to my constituents quickly, and I want to say thank you for that.
It's our pleasure.
Any other questions? Okay. No, Mr. Frappier.
One question. Amplify being the new parent company, are they the same people that provide us with rooms?
No, that's Aptitude.
Sorry, got my A's mixed up.
Nope,
Thank
I
you.
know. Too many companies.
All right. Okay.
That concludes concludes my report.
Thank you, Superintendent Sawyer. Next, we have minutes from our January 9th, 2023 meeting. The minutes were circulated with your materials. Do you have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Any edits, questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Consent agenda tonight, 9 items. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $56,500 from the Feinstein Foundation as broken down in the January 21st memorandum from the chairman, that being myself. I'm actually going to take this one separately and entertain a motion to approve this item since it's such a large number.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion, I just wanted to set this aside because, again, to acknowledge the Feinstein Foundation, all donations, obviously, that we receive are crucial and important, but Feinstein Foundation has been a great partner for us for a long time, and a donation of this size, I think, merits recognition. All in favor?
Aye.
The remaining 8 items tonight, a motion to accept the payment in the amount of $13.25 from Bay State Textiles to Hill Roberts. Motion to accept the contractual obligation in the amount of $101.65 from Planet Aid, Inc. as broken down on the check receipt dated January 20th, 2023. Motion to accept the contractual obligation from Smile Pro Portraits, Inc. in the amount of $2,331.30 to Quilla Middle School. Motion to accept a $500 gift card from Travelers Therapy to the Thatcher Elementary Insights Program. Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $3,000 from the J.S. Lim Foundation for scholarships, gifts, donations at the high school. Motion to accept the donation of 750 wooden back crafting stamps from the Retcher family with an estimated value of $600 to the Attleboro High School Sustainability Substantially Separate Classrooms. Motion to accept a donation of $500 from Mim Rooney through the United Way for general use at the high school. And a motion to accept a donation in the amount of $54.99 from Chipotle Mexican Grill to the class of 2025.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion and questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda passes. Subcommittee meeting, we'll start with teaching and learning, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is, again, my report from our meeting on January 10th. Once again, we were lucky enough to have a guest speaker, actually 2 guest speakers, Mike Davis and Julian Weber from the Environmental Master Plan Task Force. They came to provide an overview of the EMP and what the volunteer members have accomplished to date. This was a plan that was approved by previous Mayor Heroux with a sense of urgency in August of 2022. And the purpose of this plan is to focus on sustainability and resiliency in the face of climate change. The purpose of their, another purpose of their meeting with us is that they are currently reaching out to a number of groups in the community to educate the community of the purpose of their plan and to obtain feedback and input. They feel that their vision is very much aligned with the Attleboro Public Schools, and they are very much looking forward to vetting out potential relevant learning opportunities with our students. The exact opportunities are to be determined. There's still a lot of work that remains, but we want to thank the EMP members for reaching out to present to the subcommittee and explore these possible partnership opportunities for relevant learning experiences with our students. And if anybody watching is interested on receiving more information regarding EMP, more information can be found on the city website. We also discussed the middle school schedule update. This is something that administration has been working on for a while now. And we're down to the point where we're hashing out some details, so there'll be more information to come, but one of the main focuses is going to be a return of band, chorus, and those essentials and electives for the 23-24 school year. So there will be more information to come. Next, I'd like to discuss the move to Desmos as the new math curriculum for the middle school. I'd like to give, I know Ms. Regan has some comments, I'd like to give a little bit of background before we turn it over to Ms. Regan. So as a reminder, illustrative math was the current middle school math curriculum. That learning and practice happened mostly in a workbook format. But it did have a small online presence through an app that was created, that software was created by Desmos. The teachers that were frontline delivering this content really noticed an increase in learning, retention, excitement surrounding math when the students were able to practice on that Desmos app. And it was often commented that, wow, wish list, if Desmos ever created their own curriculum, wow, we would love to engage in this. And then just to step back, as a reminder, we've discussed this every once in a while in the past. There's an actual curriculum review cycle. So we are teaching a certain curriculum, and once we get kind of towards the end of the contract, keep me honest here, there's a time that we review how has this been working, what other similar curriculums are out there, what's going to be the better option to move forward. A pilot program, if appropriate, takes place, and then that decision is made and rolled out. Okay. So for the curriculum to be acceptable, it must meet the state requirements, the state rubric, in order to be rolled out. Now, fast forward, Amplify, which is a very well-respected company, it's been around for almost 25 years. They're in the business of producing very high-quality curriculum and assessments. They're in all 50 states, and they are highly rated by Ed Reports. And they recognize the quality of Desmos Math, and they actually acquired the curriculum, I believe it was in May of this year? Of 22, I'm sorry, May of 2022. So what was very exciting is that the teachers not only engaged with their students and understanding, wow, what elevated learning happened with Desmos, but they are also kept their finger on the pulse of what was going on in their industry. They approached Ms. Regan and said, wow, this is happening. I know it's maybe just a little bit before the review cycle, but can we do a micropilot? It ended up being very successful. Not only were students excited and engaged with math, but fiscally, this program ends up costing less. So it's ending up saving the district thousands of dollars over the course of the contract. We just discussed, not only is there only 2% that we can fidget around with, we're already underfunded. So the fact that we can get the same or better quality material at a savings is a plus. It's not different content. In fact, most of the questions, or many of the questions, are worded the exact same way. It's just the delivery of the content. And these teachers were proactively engaged, looking to be early adopters of this new program, and the subcommittee was so impressed with the story and the cost savings that a motion was raised, and I'll entertain the motion now, and then we can discuss. So I'd like to entertain a motion to support the administration's recommendation to pilot and shift to the Desmos Math program at the middle school level, commencing in the 23-24 school year.
So moved. Second.
Okay, Ms. Regan, if you, I know you have some additional comments.
Sure, thank you. So the illustrative math has been in the district because of its direct alignment to the Massachusetts standards and because of the instructional practices that are embedded in the program. Desmos, as Ms. Johnson commented earlier, is the foundation of Desmos is built on illustrative math. As she mentioned earlier, many of the questions are directly aligned to what is in illustrative math, just in a enhanced by the digital platform that's provided by Desmos. So I did prepare a short little lesson so that you could see the interactive and immediate feedback. That's the interactive nature of the platform, and as well as the feedback, the immediate feedback that's provided to students. So this is a grade 7 unit. It talks about scaling robots, and so the purpose of this is so that students can understand that the lengths in an original figure and in a scaled copy are proportional, and that is called the scale factor. So this is the dashboard. I'm going to show you what students see, but this is the back end for what a teacher can see and can customize the lesson accordingly. So for example, this is something that a teacher could share with her students, and it definitely explains that the lengths and the shape in a scaled copy are proportional. Complete the table to create a scaled copy of your robot, and then press draw to see what the new robot looks like. So what we can do here is look at this chart and see what we think the scale factor may be. Anyone have an idea? Can't see it.
Go with 6.
So we have a 5 and a 10. So what would be the scale factor in order for the new robot to be proportional? So let's try it out. So let's, for example, see if this was, maybe it's a scale factor of 2. So if we use that, then this would be 6.
Yeah.
The next one would be 4. And then the last one would be 3. And then you hit the button to see if you can actually have the robot be drawn for you. And it's correct. Immediate feedback. You can go back and let's say that we did not know what the scale factor for this would be, and let's say we selected 9. We would have, it could draw again. And the students are given that feedback right away for them to try it again. So all of the slides that you'll see, that support the student learning in an interactive way are just like that. So that's for the screens, and then you're also given practice problems, so the information for the practice problems are then directly connected to the teacher's dashboard, and so they can see how the students are actually responding to these questions. So select the 3 triangles that are scaled copies of the triangle. So here we would see that this is a 4, a 5, and a 3. And so of course, the next triangle that would be exactly the same would be B, because it's, it's similar. But the scaled copy of that would be scale factor, would be E. This information is then given directly to the teacher, and she's able to actually see immediately how they're answering all of the questions. The next practice problem is very similar, and it adds another layer to it and asks the teacher, or asks the student to actually identify what the scale factor would be, this number. So all of the slides, all of the practice problems are like this. There's also a teacher can provide a paper copy if student requests it, and so this is an actual copy, paper copy of that lesson. Gives the exact same thing, but without the interactive nature that you were able to see on the dashboard.
Any questions, comments? Mr. Geddes?
Just a general comment. I'm glad that we all did much better with this math problem. I had a flashback to when Gigi was first introduced to us. We could not figure anything out. And that was elementary math, whereas this is middle school. So maybe it's just fresher in our minds. But no, I think it is it does seem like a great tool for students because it is so interactive and so immediate in terms of demonstrating what they're learning. So thank you.
Sure.
Yes, Mr. Storrs.
With the contract, I know we talked about it at the curriculum subcommittee meeting.
Yeah.
It's an annual, correct? An annual charge?
So It will be because it's a digital subscription.
Right.
And so it's similar to that we would have with illustrative math as well, because we would have to purchase the workbooks annually.
Right, and I don't foresee any issues, but if we ever did discover an issue over the course of a year, we'd be able to make a decision to change if we needed to.
Yes.
All right.
Mr. Geddes?
So this is, I think you just answered it. So this is a one-year contract with the opportunity to go into extended contracts after that.
So we have to do, sometimes it depends on the company and the contract, but we typically go into one-year contracts and then renew each year.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions, comments? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Next, policy and personnel, Mr. Storrs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Policy and Personnel Subcommittee met on Monday, January 30th. We had about 50 policies that we reviewed, mostly in sections A and our governing section B. The first thing that we focused on was a legal counsel recommendation for our handbooks, for our current handbooks, regarding a change to the law from November 8th. The law change had to do with, how do I say it, had different ways that we would deal with certain type of discipline. So in other words, don't just automatically go to the most drastic of the suspension and the expulsion, but there's other things to try before we do that. And this is in law, so we have to follow it. So the legal counsel came forward with some recommended wording. As far as, for the administration, if you could please explain how that would be, beyond what we're saying here tonight, how that is going to be disseminated or put up on the website or what have you.
Okay, so the addendums that were created were for 37 8¾ and so the addendums will be attached to each of the handbooks and then will be posted online so that families could see the change to the discipline law that was written.
So effectively, this, after the next meeting, per our policy, this would go into effect, and our current handbooks would have this change to it. Even though by law we're already doing these things, we need to put it into the language. The language is a little bit different than the law, and we're going to look at that between now and the next time the handbooks come out. But for now, with our legal counsel's recommendation, we felt that this was the way to go. So a motion came out unanimously from the subcommittee to approve the addendum to the 2022-2023 student handbooks to align with,
Let's say as presented.
to align with as provided, yes, that's a way to put it. So again, that came out of the subcommittee unanimously, so it's going right up to the floor for a discussion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, so next we're going to get into our policies. The first section was policies that for the most part, align with mask. I'm going to read each. I'm going to have to name each of the policies. If I don't provide any additional wording, a description, then it aligns with mask as is, and we're just going to note the review date. If there are any minor changes, there are some where there are minor changes. I'll explain what they are. Policy AA, school district legal status. Policy AB, the people in the school district. It's a minor text change so that we fully align with mask. Policy ADDA, background checks, again, a minor text change. Policy ADDA R1, Regulation 1, DCJIS Model Corey Policy. Policy ADC, tobacco products on school premises prohibited. We're adding cross-references to the policy. Policy AE, commitment to accomplishment. Policy BAA, evaluation of school committee operational procedures. BB, school committee legal status. BBA, school committee powers and duties. BBAA, school committee member authority, we're removing unrelated cross-references. BBBC, school committee member resignation, minor text change. BCA, school committee member ethics. BDA, school committee organizational meeting. BDD, school committee superintendent relationship. BDF, advisory committee to the school committee. BDG, school attorney. Our policy differs only in a section that talks about access to legal counsel going through the chairman. BE, school committee meetings. BEC, executive sessions. Ours has a minor addition to the security deployment discussions in an executive session. BEDA, notification of school committee meetings. BEDD, rules of order. BEDF, voting method, there's a minor one-letter edit. BEE, special procedures for conducting hearings. BGB, policy adoption, ours has a small difference in going into effect for the next meeting. BGD, school committee review of procedures, minor word edit. BGE, policy dissemination, minor text change. BGF, suspension of policies. BHC, school committee staff communications, we're removing the cross-references that are not in Matt's policy. BIA, new school committee member orientation, minor additions to align with MASC. And BK, school committee memberships, a minor change to align with MASC. If anybody wants me to take any of these separate, let me know. Seeing none, are there any questions or issues? Yes, please.
The change, the minor tweaks to all the, that you referenced are,
Yep.
are show up in the, what we received.
What was provided, correct, yes. Yeah. And again, for the most part, some of them are just word changes, his, hers to theys and things of that nature. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so after our next meeting for policy, those will go into effect. Our next section is noting the review date of the following policies as they are different from MASC, but they reflect Attleboro's protocol procedures and we do not want to make changes to them. I'll read them all again. Policy AD, district mission, vision, and beliefs. BA, school committee operational goals. BBBE, unexpired term fulfillment. BDB, school committee officers. BDE, subcommittees of the school committee. BDFA, school councils. BDFA-E1, school improvement plans. BDFA-E2, conduct of school council business. BEDB, the agenda format. BEDB E1, which is a template of that. BEDG, the minutes. BEDH, public participation at school committee meetings. BEDH-E1, the open forum guidelines. BG, policy development. And BID, school committee member compensation and expenses. Does anybody want me to take any of those separately? Seeing none, is there any questions or discussions?
Again, quick, the only changes I saw on these were provided in the materials, which are really just the review date and some legal references.
Yeah, that's
correct?
just the review date. Yep. Okay. Yep. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, again, after the next meeting, all those will go into effect. Next, I'm going to take the next couple separately. So there was a motion that came out to approve minor edits to policy DJ, purchasing, so that it aligns with the City of Attleboro protocol, so that it's only, that it relates to in excess of $500. That's the only change of that policy. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes. Okay. Next, I'm going to do these two together as they're related. Policy JFAAA, Integrated Preschool Community Peer Program, and JFAAA-E1, Guidelines for Integrated Preschool Community Peer Model Admission Policy. In this case, the administration is recommending, or changing, going from peer model to community peers. Anything to add to that, just the benefits?
Community is inviting anyone who's a preschooler to our ELC.
So throughout the two, and we're really just making that change from peer model to community peers. Okay, any discussion, questions?
Yep. So this, the one that's in our document, this is the existing policy. We're recommending a change that hasn't been put in there yet.
So right now, as it is on the website, it says peer model.
Yeah.
And we're switching to community peers. I'm not sure which one you have.
Well, I'm looking at the fourth bullet point. This is JFAAA. The fourth bullet point still uses peer model. So is this the edited version?
So we actually caught that during the meeting, and that's supposed to be community peers as well. Yeah. So pretty much every single place where it says
Can we
peer model.
take this separately and say no, and then get back to it when it's ready?
No, we can just, so we can easily fix this right now. So
Okay.
the motion would be, and this came out of the full committee, because we actually found that and addressed it at the time. All places where it currently says peer model in both of these would now be community peers.
Okay, thank you.
Administration is good with that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Okay, next one is a motion to approve the edits to the following policies that align with mask. The changes were provided to the members, so I'll read each one and then we'll take them off. BBBA/BBBB, School Committee Member Qualifications and Oath of Office. BGC, Policy Revision and Review. And BHE, Use of Electronic Messaging by School Committee Members. Again, the edits is so that we align with mask. And we try to do that wherever we can. Does anybody want either of these taken up separately? Seeing none. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that'll go into effect after our next meeting. Also, I want to say the reason why it goes into effect after our next meeting is actually due to one of the policies that we did review, and that's because we want to be able to provide the community the ability to come before us if they ever had an issue with something that we just changed, so that we can hear from them, and then before the end of the next meeting, if they came before us and we felt we needed to fix it, we'd be able to go back. Okay, and that, Mr. Chairman, concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Storrs. Finance and Budget, Mr. Larson.
Thank you. Finance and Budget Subcommittee met on February 1st, and we have two motions to bring forward out of from the meeting. First is some housekeeping, so we're recommending to the full committee to send to the Municipal Council for approval of payment of prior year invoices in the amount of $5,809.29 as broken down in the information that was provided.
So moved.
Second.
Anyone have any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Second item to bring forward, we have an annual, again, housekeeping review of the fee structure for Abacus. There were some minor increases that were made. So the motion from the subcommittee is to have the full committee recommend and approve the Abacus fee structure for the 2023-2024 school year as proposed.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any questions or concerns?
Mr. Larson, just,
Yes.
it looks like was there a reason why there were increases in some areas and not others, or is it just based on need at different times, or?
I think what they continue to try to do is only increase where they actually have costs that have increased. So some of the programs have additional costs that come forward, and the others they're trying to hold in line as best they can.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. That's the extent of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Next, we have open forum. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and address the committee at open forum? Use a new fancy podium. Please introduce yourself with your name and address.
Joe Murphy, 24 Stair Street, lifelong Attleboro resident, AHS graduate class of 67. Last year, this honorable board voted unanimously to retain the Attleboro High School sports name, the Blue Bombardiers. Since then, a new mascot has been unveiled, a rousing success. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not seeing Blue Bombardiers in the Attleboro High School gymnasium. Oh yes, there is an illuminated sign, Blue Bombardiers sign, but it's on the face of the scorer's table. It's only visible to half of the attendees, the guests as such, but it's oblivious to the TV cable cameras which are above the scorer's table. Is there a plan to proudly display the Blue Bombardiers branding in a gym? I have another observation relating to the AHS football field, the Toja Cassidy football field. Both are AHS former football coaches, both veterans. Jim Cassidy was my AHS football coach. I see no Blue Bombardier signage visible to visitors and guests within the stadium. Just a reminder that this complex hosts many school and local events in addition to AHS football. My understanding is that the field is to undergo much upgrading this summer. Do the plans include the Blue Bombardiers branding as part of the project? I'm aware that the board has more important responsibilities than school athletic team names. My hope is that the Blue Bombardiers name is not forgotten or ignored. AHS basketball programs this year, last week, have the new mascot present, but no mention of the Blue Bombardiers. I'm a proud Blue Bombardier with deep gratitude for my Attleboro Public School education. Comments, questions, observations? I realize I've thrown a lot at you, but just to open a discussion as such.
Okay. So, Mr. Murphy, what I can do, I have your contact information. I'll touch base with the administration this week and be in touch about the specific questions about both the basketball court and the football field, and continue the dialogue.
Would you like a copy of this?
What's that?
Would you
Sure,
like-
yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to address the committee at open forum? All right, seeing none, I'll close open forum. Does anyone else have any other business tonight? Mr. Domenici?
Just to mention that coming up on the 18th is the Attleboro Winter Festival. It's exciting to have that come back. The Downtown Attleboro Associates have done a lot of work to put it together. And we're excited because I know that they had asked about, back in prior winter festivals, they used to afford the kids the opportunity to take a picture with Paws, the Pawtucket Red Sox mascot, who no longer exists. And as a former Pawtucket resident, I couldn't be more disappointed in that. I am excited that our new Blue Bombardier mascot will be present on that night to be available to take photos of kids. So it's just another way of connecting community through Attleboro Public Schools, and I thought that should be mentioned.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Oh, actually,
Yeah, Ms. Farper.
just in honor of Committee Person Getty's birthday. Thank you for being here on your birthday with us.
Happy birthday, Thanks for having me.
No.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.